All right, this is the first of 3 videos where we're going to talk about pedigrees. Pedigrees are charts, and they're charts that allow us to track traits or genetics from one generation to another. So let's just kind of write out a quick definition. It's a chart that shows inheritance between generations or 4 generations. Or by generation to generation. So what you see to your right is the pedigree for Cleopatra, of the famous Cleopatra of Egypt. Now, we're not really tracking a trait here, but it shows the family tree, so to speak. So Cleopatra's down here. These numbers to the side, these represent generations. Cleopatra was a part of a family called the Ptolemies. And we have down here, I'm sorry, this is Cleopatra and her brother Ptolemy. So within each generation, we have numbers, and these numbers represent individuals. So we have generations, and then these numbers are the individuals. So I would talk about generation 1, individual 3. So this person would be 1, 3. Down here, I have generation 3, person 2. So this would be person 3, generation 3, person 2. And we designate specific people on a pedigree by that combination of Roman numeral and number. So what about these boxes and circles? Well, a box that is blank, draw this a little bit darker, is a normal male. And this is when we're talking about tracking a trait, and we're usually tracking a trait. And a circle is a normal female. A filled in box is a male that is positive for a trait, and a filled in circle would be the same, except in this case, it's a female. Now, there's another possibility, and we see this especially with sex-linked, right? We talked about sex-linked, and you can be a carrier. So, and that's usually females. So a female who's a carrier, we do a half filled in circle, and this designates carrier. Again, we're only seeing the squares and the circles on this. We're not tracking a trait, but, you know, we're going to kind of analyze this pedigree a little bit. If you see a male-female line, this represents a pairing or a marriage. Not every connection here is a marriage, but in some way they were connected. If there are lines coming down from a marriage, this represents offspring. And if the offspring, if we come down, and let's say we've got a square, a circle, and a circle, these would be siblings. So each of these shorthand notations means something. So they're either the sex is either male or female. The trait is either they're a carrier, and then this shows relationship. But we have something a little different here. We've got these double lines. Well, let's start at the top and analyze this pedigree. So we have whoever this first male was, the pharaoh. The rulers of Egypt were called pharaohs, and he was had as one of his wives a woman. They had a son, and then the woman apparently married. Something happened here, and so she remarried. So she has her first husband is here, and her second husband is here, and they had a son. And each of these sons got married to someone outside of this family tree. So generation 2, there was a daughter and there was a son. And then you have this really unusual double line here. That double line is called cosanguineous, a term you don't need to know, but what that means is there was a blood relation. Blood relationship. Now, in this case, how would these two be related? Did you say first cousins? Yeah, so these guys would be first cousins. That's not so bad. So together they had a son and they had a daughter. This is where things take a little bit of a saucy turn because look what we have here. This represents a connection. And how are these guys related? Ooh, these guys are brother and sister. So a brother and a sister got married. Don't they know what happens? Turns out they didn't. They didn't think that marriage within a family was really all that bad, especially for the Egyptian royal family, because they believed that the ruler of Egypt, the pharaoh, was descended from a god. And so they had to keep all that godly goodness in the family. But to do that, they married sisters and cousins. So these guys had a son, and he married someone from the outside, and they had a daughter. So, and they had a son, and they had a son. Oh boy, here we go again. We've got brother and sister, and then they had a daughter who married this man. What connection do we have there? Did you say uncle and niece? So this man was her uncle, and she married him. They had a son and a daughter. They got married. And Cleopatra, her first husband, wasn't Julius Caesar. In fact, she never married Julius Caesar. She was married to her brother Ptolemy, and then she was married to Mark Antony. But yeah, she never married Julius Caesar. So the purpose for this video is to kind of show you what the symbols mean. Again, when we're tracking diseases, we're going to see filled in boxes and filled in circles or half circles for carriers. And then we can understand that if we see this, we're talking about siblings. If we see this, it's offspring. If we see this, we have some kind of a connection, a pairing, a marriage. And then this is when things don't go so well genetically. What you'll see is when we have these situations, bad traits tend to stay in this gene pool and they get passed around. And by the time you get down here, you can be pretty deformed. Okay, that's it for our introduction to pedigree. Let's look at how the pedigrees look for different forms of inheritance in the next video.